We're live. Thank you for being Thank you for being on You Be the Judge. I'm Dr. Paul Dyer. My lovely co-host is Marilyn Pierre, and we have our other lovely co-host, Judge Claudia Barbara. And I'd like to thank everyone who does join us here every Wednesday. And sometimes I've missed 2 Wednesdays already, but we'll talk about that. But thank you for everyone for joining us and listening to us or downloading us or whatever you do, and share and like and love and have conversations, because our conversations is always and will be about 3 things: information, understanding, and action. Hopefully the things that we talk about, you will understand. If you don't understand, ask the question. Put it in an inbox. Put it in an email. Send us a text, and all through the social media, that wherever how you hear it, if you don't understand something. And then hopefully, if you do understand something, I hope you put it into an action. To be a doer, I was explaining today with some students that to do is to go towards life. And if you do things that are on a positive note, if on a positive state, then life will exist. If you do things on a negative state, then you decrease life. So no matter what you do, understand what you're doing, be informed, and to do something. So thank everyone for being on You Be the Judge. Hi, Marilyn. How was your week?
Hi, I'm fine. I'm so happy to have you. And rather than drone on about how my week was, I'd prefer to hear about you, because we haven't seen you in 2 weeks, so we miss you.
So
tell us about what you've been up to.
So what I want to tell people is that I'm always on a social justice, train. That's always happening for me. I'm definitely going to be pushing the envelope and collecting data and being in spaces that most people aren't in. So this way I could be informed. But the other thing is I've been having health issues, and I would like to talk about that just a little bit. Not about specifically my health, but it has taken an emotional, mental toll. And it whenever we have some form of health, it does affect our living space. And what I mean is that, we have said, and people have spoken before, health is wealth. And if you don't understand your health, then get that information, right? And once you have that information, then you have a choice. I always believe people have a choice only when they have information. You without a choice if you have no information. And then who's running who? Right? Is the environment running you? Is the situation running you? But you are not in. I am very remiss in saying control, because I don't want you to think it's just about control, but it's definitely about having a choice. So I will put in the chat what it could be, but as far as going on air, I won't actually divulge that, but it has taken some issues. So, but we are here, we're family, we talk, we express, we laugh, we disagree, but we don't argue. and that's a great thing. We don't argue. So that's really been going on for the 2 weeks for me. Just getting more information so I can deal with this situation of health that I'm in. But still always pushing that social justice front for me. Always pushing that information front for me. Always pushing how I can make other lives better for not just for me, but for the state of humanity. And there's been a lot of things coming up on a global scale, on a UN issue, on a security advisory that I'm part of. So on a NATO front, it's just, there's a lot of stuff going on that affects us on so many levels, in the micro and the macro. So, but that's what's going on for me. Was I vague enough? Should I run for office?
No, this is fine. And, whatever challenges life brings to you, you know that we're here to support you and to help you as much as you can. So share as much as you want with any of us, all of us, and we will do our best to be right there in your corner to support you in any way that we can.
Thank you. So I see our guest is here, but I don't have a picture like her behind me. I need a new photographer. I need someone to take shots or something. I just, yeah, I'll have to ask her. We'll have to ask Miss Carmen Dr. Carmen, where she gets her pictures taken. And I don't have a pink microphone. I got all this equipment. You have no idea how much equipment's going on with the recording and stuff for this show. And I just have a regular microphone, so.
Okay. Well, as Dr. Johnson is getting herself ready, I just want to say I am so thrilled to have her here as our guest. Here's her book. This is what she has in the background over here. And this book, if you could get your hands on it, it is fabulous. It is called The Pretense of Justice. First of all, the name itself, The Pretense of Justice. I mean, that is so poetic. And second of all, her story is just so amazing and so thrilling that I thought if I hadn't met her first and know some of what was going on, I would have thought this was a thriller or made for a TV movie or something like it. But it's just so interesting. I know I cannot do her justice, so I'm going to give her the opportunity to introduce herself and to tell us more about her life and what has happened, what she's doing now. Dr. Johnson.
Hello, everyone. I am certainly pleased to be here as your guest. And I don't really know when it started. I'm a humanitarian. I'm an activist. I am a Buddhist. I am, I love, the community. I love my family. I love, everyone. I don't really know where to start it. I'm not good at, talking about myself. So, I'm a new author.
While you hold on. I have to jump in and dance with Dr. Johnson. I'm also a Buddhist.
Wow.
Right.
Which sect are you with?
I'm a Tibetan Buddhist.
Okay, I'm a Tibetan Buddhist.
Yeah. I've been practicing Buddhism for over 25 years.
I've been practicing Buddhism for over 20-something years, and I grew up Pentecostal, however.
Yeah, I'm a recovering Catholic. I lived in China, studied at the monastery in Hunan, and so yeah, love it. I had recently wrote a book. Are we masters or are we being mastered? I just released that book, and it's also about the failed state that we could be in as a society in the United States. So, very similar. But go ahead.
I like the interaction here. I think that some of us are masters and most of us are being mastered. Let's be clear.
That's right. That's why I wrote it, and I put the data out there to see, hopefully to raise the question, where do I fall into this, right? And if I fall into I'm a master, then you are serving humanity. If you fall into being mastered, then you are a product of a situation, right? It's a woe is me. It's I didn't know this was going on. It's all those things would ask. But if you're mastering, you have information, you know how it's derived, you know where it's going, you know how you can apply it, and you know how you can disregard it. So those things seem simple for some, but it's very difficult for many to say, I did not know that. It's okay to not know things, but if you have a question and you don't look for not just an answer, but for understanding. I think understanding is different than an answer, because as a scientific mind, if you only look for an answer, you're going to find the answer you want, but it might not be an understanding of what it is. So it applies differently.
Absolutely. So we both come from, Catholics are like Christians, right? So we both come from that background. And that was quite interesting. And I want to pick up right there. I remember when, after I went to trial and lost,
You're getting so far ahead of the story, and I don't think people will really understand if you start at it, because I personally think that you should start with your love of the community and how it is you wanted to serve the community, and why you started your business in order to help people in the community. And I think that will flow into what happened, and
Well,
continue on.
It does. So if you would allow me, it's really important. So when I got to the prison camp after trial, I had amnesia. And the only thing that I could remember was my Native American ways by my grandmother and the Christian ways. I did not remember being a Buddhist, a practicing Buddhist. And so as a little girl, after I moved from South Carolina with my grandmother to Maryland with my mother, my brother and we was brought up on Christianity. And so from the time I was little, I wanted to be just like Mother Teresa. I wanted to around that time, I don't want to tell my age, but around that time, Marvin Gaye had, what's going on out there. The Black Panthers was marching. Martin Luther King was killed. Malcolm X was killed. Medgar
Evers
killed, and JFK. It was just so much chaos that was going on, and all I wanted to do was just give love to the planet. I just wanted to go around the world and feed the hungry children, and that's how I was brought up. And my father would always make my brother and I stand in the middle of the floor to talk about, what are you going to do for your community? And, how are you going to give back? And so that's how my book kind of starts off with, who my family is, and then me growing up and, and having a strong belief system in, Christianity, but also understanding who I was, because my grandmother always told my brother and I that we were already here. So we already understood that we were the natives of the land. And so it's still instilled in me to care and love for the people in our community, the people in the United States of America, the people around the world. And it's really unfortunate what happened to me. And, being the former housing chair for the state conference NAACP of Maryland came with a high price back then. And I had no idea what life was going to be in store for me. I had no idea that the universe was going to send me on a sabbatical through the injustice system. And that's pretty much what happened. And I know Attorney Pierre is going to bomb me out again, but I don't.
No, not really. And the question is that you had mentioned things you were taught, right? Mm-hmm. Like what your grandmother taught you, and we have many forms of lessons. People can call them educations. People can call them information, but it's a lesson. So when do we apply the lesson? That's often not ever taught of how to apply. We've been given lessons. We have lessons. People would tell us. We've been taught, or how you want to circle it. But then we are not sure at the time how to apply it. Only in retrospect we think, I could have applied. So the question is, sometimes, if you can help answer this, when do you think people should learn how to apply a lesson they have previously been taught?
Well, as a Buddhist, everything should be a lesson, because if you strive to understand that everything is a lesson, mm-hmm. it removes the ego and the pain mm-hmm. and the repeating of that lesson. And so I just had to relearn that lesson mm-hmm. that Everything is a lesson.
Everything.
And once I realized that, and this was just in the last year, that, hey, this was a lesson, that I had to go on. Now, what am I going to do with this lesson? Am I going to just have amnesia and not remember that I agreed to do this before I got here? Or am I going to take this lesson, remove the pain, and help our people? And when I say help our people, I mean help, the people in our community, but also help the justice system, help attorneys, help public defenders, help prosecutors, help judges, help everybody understand what this mass incarceration is doing to the people, especially here in the United States. You know what I mean? So the pain just finally left me in the last 12 months or so, because I had to accept the lesson. And the lesson was, I forgive my oppressors. And now that I forgive my oppressors, now I need to help my oppressors understand that our people are suffering in this injustice system, or this pretense of justice.
I love how you stated you had to learn the lesson, because as me being a practicing Buddhist for 20 plus, is prior to that, I understood, I had lessons, I had information, had people who cared and loved for me, and I still tried to commit suicide. And it was only until I turned over my pain, my understanding of my pain, my PTSD situation, whatever those things were, and turn them over to embrace them, to understand what, not the effect, but the causes. And then allow that to release that. And it's every day. So my practices is daily. People say you must be healed. I said, no, healed means it's over. We're always healing, because we are a living organism. I wrote about that in a recent book too. We are living organisms that takes a process all the time. It doesn't stop. If it stops, then it's dead. So you talked about the injustice system, and it must have grabbed you while you were affected by it. So how were you affected by it?
Well, for one thing, I'm an impacted woman who still maintain her innocence as of today. And so that's where I quite frequently use the word the injustice system, because that's exactly what I experienced. And it is really unfortunate for anyone to end up going through what I went through, going through this whole chain of events that's wrapped up into, there's a whole process that you have to go through to end up in jail. Like, jail is like the last stop. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, when you come out, re-entry, that's a whole nother monster. But, for me, if I had plotted a crime, then I would have been like, okay, well, I could go to jail if I could get caught. But you just minding your business, you working for your community, you doing the best that you can, you chanting, you meditating all day, and doing, everything that you're supposed to do, doing your fasting and all of that kind of stuff, making sure your energy is right, your frequencies, your vibrations, giving love and all that kind of stuff. And then all of a sudden, here come every alphabet in the universe. Well, not in the universe, but in the United States. And then what do you do with that? What do you do with that pain from a country that you love so much? Mm-hmm. What do you do with that? What do you do with the families that, I fought so hard to help stay in their homes, and to only, piss off a lot of powerful people that was so angry with me because I just wanted to see families stay together. And this was around the time when all those foreclosures was happening all over the United States. Mm-hmm. But of course, my focus was Maryland because I was the chairwoman for, housing for the NAACP of Maryland. Not knowing that and not being so naive and not understanding that, not remembering, Martin Luther King and Malcolm X and all of those people that died for a cause, Gandhi, all of them, and not understanding, not making the connection. Mm-hmm. They died because they loved their people. You think about some of the Black Panthers that are still behind the wall after all these years. I was brainwashed in school to think that the Panthers were bad and to find out that they was really, they weren't. Based on my studies and my research, I misunderstood the Black Panthers. And to know that some of them are still, they're old now and they're sitting behind the wall and everybody has gone on with their lives is weird to me. So I had no idea that the love for my community was going to take me on a journey that I will be tethered to the rest of my life. And also I talk about in the book, just to add to what you just said, I mean, when I came home, I had 21 ways how I was going to kill myself. 21 ways. I had them all wrote down how I was going to kill myself because I couldn't deal with the shame that prison jails, camps, and cages place upon you. I couldn't deal with the fact that people was angry because I was maintaining my innocence. People was pissed off at me because I went to trial. People was so angry with me, the trial was stopped early and they arrested me immediately and said I was a terrorist and that I was ISIS. They were so pissed off and angry with me until they started dieseling me. I don't know if people know what dieseling means. It means...
I was going to say, please explain.
Dieseling is when you are moved from jail to jail to jail. Mm-hmm. You're not given the benevolence to, hey, handle your affairs. I didn't handle my business affairs. I didn't handle my personal affairs because I was arrested immediately. And, you go from jail to jail until they finally get you to your destination. And it could take up to a year. And, that's really, really unfortunate because the type of, personality that I have, the type of character that I have, I didn't deserve any of that. And the things that I saw going through this system and the things that I saw inside this system, I should not have seen. However,
now that you saw it.
However, I do understand that the universe wanted me to see this.
Mm-hmm. Oh, Dr. Johnson, we're getting comments like, this is very fascinating, but people don't understand because they don't understand why you were incarcerated or what you were doing before you were incarcerated and why you still maintain your innocence. So if you could just go back just a little bit and explain what you were doing, why it was so threatening to people and why what ended up happening to you happened to you.
Hold on, Marilyn. And you can answer this if you want, Dr. Johnson, and maybe you will. But my question is this. I'm not sure if it matters. And the reason why I say it is because whatever could be said, justice or injustice or the system doesn't care what the reason is. Now, hold on, you're mute. Now, if it was murder, but she's not saying that she did something, she was accused of something. You're still on mute, Mary. So,
Oh, yeah.
so being accused doesn't say why you were in prison or jailed or incarcerated.
Well, first of all, it's no secret because she lays it out in her book. So it's not like she's trying to hide it.
No.
What I'm saying is that people are confused because we're starting the story, you might even say in the middle. So because they don't know what happened in the beginning and why you were targeted.
Okay, so
because not everybody gets targeted. If you're sitting in your house,
that's not true.
You're not challenging anybody. Chances are you're going to be left alone. But if you're making progress and you're doing things, and I think that's a fascinating part of your story, because part of your story is you were doing so well, for yourself and for your community. And, I do believe, based on what I've read, that's why you were targeting, because you were so successful. And I think people need to understand that part.
So let me clear it up for me, myself. I think people want to know what you were doing, not why you were incarcerated. Because I'm not sure if you're asking, I was incarcerated because I was accused of X. I will still have to explain, because I still may not know why I was targeted. I just know.
In which case you could say that.
But what I'm saying is, I want people to ask themselves a question: why do they want to know the why? Because it doesn't explain the how.
Well, because like you said, it could be for anything.
Right.
And so they would like to follow the story.
Okay.
So, sometimes you start in the middle of a story and people don't understand what is happening. And some people like things explained chronologically. This happened and this happened and this happened. And seeing that we started from what I consider to be the middle, they're kind of confused and they're asking.
Okay. I just want to put it out there. That's where sometimes I think, be careful.
Dr. Johnson is very intelligent. She is extremely intelligent. She knows that, she's under no obligation to reveal.
No, I wasn't. And I don't think I was directing it at Dr. Johnson. I was just more. When we ask a question, ask yourself, what is the result I'm looking for? The question for the reason I'm looking for the question, and I think that's okay, but know your why of why you're asking. And because the response may not adhere to, that doesn't make sense. But then you're not receiving information. You're just asking questions. But did that make sense, Dr. Johnson? Am I making?
Yeah, and I started out at the spiritual aspect. That's where I wanted to start. However, what people have to understand, that there are so many innocent people that are sitting behind the wall. So whether someone is innocent or guilty, you may find yourself in a situation like me. And what I was doing was saving our families from illegal foreclosures. However, I was led into a mortgage fraud case. It was 21 or 24 counts, and it was 14 Tanzanians. They put me into that case. And they committed mortgage banking wire fraud. Okay. And so anyone who wants to go and look my case up, please do. And then also read the book, and you'll realize this doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense because it's not sense. And again, people need to understand that there are way more innocent people sitting behind the wall than what you think. And no one cares about that innocent person, whether they're male or female. The community don't care that you're saying you're innocent. The judge don't care. The prosecutor don't care. Even your defense attorney may not even care. The people, the inmates behind the wall don't care. The guards don't care. And then when you come home, you don't get no fist bump if you still maintaining your innocence. The whole system is a nightmare. And is even more of a nightmare for people that maintain their innocence. And so, I've been home 5 years. I spent 3 years and some months at that prison camp. And, people still tell me today, stop saying that you're innocent. Why? This is my story. I stand by it. I stick to it. How do I get 21 counts or 24 counts or whatever it was, and I only get 3 years and some months? How does that make sense? That doesn't make sense. So please feel free, research my case and then read my book, and you'll be like, this don't make sense, because it doesn't make sense. And then another thing that don't make sense, why do people have to wait 15, 20, 30 years, 40 years to get out of jail for people to say, oh, my bad, this person was innocent, yay, they're home now? They messed up the rest of their life. They are messed up the rest of their life. I'm messed up the rest of my life. However, I have a true, relationship with the universe. But I unlike Dr. Dyer, is that how you pronounce your name?
Dyer.
Yeah. I still suffer from PTSD. I'm a female. I'm a female energy. This is what this system did to me. So I come from a great family. I'm the offspring of Benjamin Harrison, who helped draft the Declaration of Independence. His son became the 9th president of the United States, and his grandson became the 23rd president of the United States. Those are my great, great, great grandfathers. And guess what? They brought that up in court. But that didn't save me. The two head Africans got on the stand and said she didn't know about our scam, nor did she financially benefit, nor is she part of our community. And then one said, well, she did work on some of our clients' credit. I was licensed by the state of Maryland back then to work on credit. And then the other one said, well, she knew we were realtors. I was working with realtors all around the United States. The trial should have stopped. So if you're confused about a person, a human being, saying that they are emphatically innocent and wrote a book about it, that's a problem. Because what happened to me can most definitely happen to you. That's my whole message is, what happened to me could happen to you. And most people don't care until them apple ducks knock on the door. They don't care until then. And then they want to call me and say, what you think? Well, was you interested before they knocked on the door? Like, we already see what this system is doing.
It's a playbook that has been going on since. It's just a playbook. We have not been able to defeat this playbook that our said government uses to defame anyone they want to. We as the Republic, I believe, have the authority if we collectively join. But we're so divided because of him and her, because of names of this and that, because of religions of here and there, and because of economic levels of who and who has not. We're continually to work that maze that we are unable to form a collective republic to say that we the people. Often, they never get we the people. They get we 3,000, we 30,000, but not 3 million, right? So, go ahead.
Yeah, I want to go back a little bit about what you said about this could happen to anybody, because reading your book where you talk about how meticulous you were about making sure that you followed every rule. You had your taxes done. You had all the professionals that you needed to help you. You had all the licenses that you needed to help you. I would have expected that you would have been the last person whose door that they would have knocked on. Yet they knocked on your door. They believed people who had no credibility over you, who had so much credibility. And like you said, they even called you ISIS. Where did that come from? that didn't make any sense whatsoever, but you found yourself in this situation. And and I really, really think that people should read this book because it's so interesting and you're so honest about what you went through, the things that happened to you in jail and in prison. Yeah. And how you were able to use your inner strength to help you during that period. It's just an incredible story. Yeah.
I wouldn't want to repeat it.
No, but it's an incredible story. And to know that you are one of our neighbors, basically, and having gone through that, it's just really interesting.
I think the part that haunts me the most about my story, and I write about it in the book, is I remember this probably was like in 2007 or 2008, somewhere around in there. One of my clients called me, and I don't remember his name or anything like that. And he said, Dr. Johnson, I just was raided. And I said, well, what's raid? Like, I didn't know what I said. What's raid? What you mean? And then he said, the feds just came and, busted in my door. And I said, well, where you calling me from? He said, I'm calling you from my home phone. And I said, yo, lose my number. You must have done something. I don't remember his name. I don't remember what he looked like, but almost every day I can hear his voice. And so I was that person that I'm trying to warn our community that this could happen to them because, I lived a certain lifestyle growing up, and I just understood that as long as you don't break no law, long as you stick by the rules of, what's set forth, you'll be fine. Long as you go to school, long as you work hard, long as you treat your neighbors right, all of that kind of stuff. I did every last one of those things. Every last one of those things. Not everybody can say that. And also, you certainly don't find very many Buddhists in jail, prison camps, or cages. Maybe over in China or something like that, because they are political prisoners. Mm-hmm. But you're not going to find too many Buddhists in jail because of our spirituality, like what we stand for. And I'm not saying that I'm perfect. That's not what I'm saying, because I mean, I'm in a human body, mm-hmm. I'm having a human experience. So of course I'm going to make mistakes, and it's all about how do I fix mistakes. But what I'm not going to do is I'm not going to steal from our country to give to another country. That I'm not going to steal from my neighbor. I'm not going to sleep with my family member's husband. I'm not going to do any of those things. That's not going to happen. And, you can't get more patriotic than my family. I just told you we're the offsprings of. That's on one side. And then the other side, we're Cherokee, Choctaw, and Seminole. So why would I steal from America when America is my home? And to be accused of that, and people still look at me funny. Or people give me the fist up, thumbs up. Hey, we, love you, you home, and da, da, da. But I don't get invited to the party. Not that I'm going to the party, but I don't get invited out to but people that's been knowing me for 20, 30 years, I don't get invited. I see them all on Facebook and stuff like that. I don't get invited out, but yet they'll like all my posts and all kinds of stuff like that. And Carmen, you rock and all of that. But I don't get invited. And it's okay, because I know that I'm on a mission. I'm here on a mission. And I haven't figured out the whole mission, but I know I'm here on a mission to have an experience. And one of the things is to balance out the frequency and vibration of this planet. So
when you talk about welcome Judge Barbara, welcome. She's my other lovely co-host. When you talk about the court system, the injustice system, when you were experiencing that in that room with people talking and you're listening and nothing's being said for you, but against you. Can you talk about that atmosphere and how that felt?
I could not believe that it was happening to me, and I could not understand. I could not grasp who they were talking about. I could not fathom who they were talking about. I couldn't understand. I couldn't understand it. And, one of the things, I'm with an organization called Life After Release, and I'm the director of Court Watch Judicial Accountability. And one of our slogans is injustice happened in an empty courtroom. And that slogan was coined by Ms. Kiana Johnson, who is the executive director of that organization. And injustice happened in an empty courtroom those days. Not to mention, my trial was stopped early, and it was really unfortunate. And I had at different times I had 4 different high-profile attorneys, and then finally I ended up with a standby attorney. And every time I was like sliding him notes to say, ask this person this or ask this person that, he wouldn't do it. And if I knew what I know now, I would jump up in the courtroom and say, Your Honor, for the record, this attorney is not doing what I asked him to do. But I didn't know that. I didn't know we didn't study law sitting at our dining room table in the evening time. We did our homework while Mom cooked. She read us the Bible, before we went to bed. When I look back and I talk about it in the book, we should be teaching our kids about law. We should be teaching our children about law. So I would have known to do that, to jump up and say, this attorney right here, this standby attorney, this court-appointed attorney, not public defender, this was a paid attorney by the courts that would not do what I needed him to do. And that's when I knew I was doomed. I knew I was doomed when they kept pushing forward, and I kept fighting. I knew not to take a plea. They were so angry. Everybody was angry with me because I wouldn't take a plea. My high profile attorneys, each one, when I would hire them, we can beat this. A couple of months later, you need to take a plea. Take a plea for what? And when I first was going to the prosecutor's office, they was like, tell us what you did. You tell me what I did. You tell me what I did. Like, I didn't realize what was happening until we was close to trial. And then majority of the documentation that they kept showing on the screen in the courtroom, I had never seen before in my life. But they kept weaving in my ID. They kept weaving in like my bank accounts, because my business had several different bank accounts. They kept weaving in my business bank accounts. They kept weaving in documentation. They kept weaving in like credit reports that had nothing on them, but they didn't have the before credit reports where all the junk was deleted. It was just horrible.
So hold on, I got to ask our attorneys, which I'm so blessed to have. What's the difference between a plea and not taking one? Does that play out differently, and why?
It means she's going to trial if she doesn't accept the plea. It means that she's going to trial on the merits. And there are multiple reasons why people choose not to take a plea and go to trial. First of all, the majority reasons why people choose not to take a plea is because they're innocent. And if you take a plea, you're trying to plead guilty to something, some charge, lesser charge, same charge, or whatever. But the whole concept of the plea is to really, in some instances, save the prosecutor from proving his case beyond a reasonable doubt. So a lot of times the prosecutor feels that, they may have a slam dunk, but they may not have a slam dunk case. And they also know that there are a lot of risks that go with litigation. They also know that their chances of getting a case tanked for whatever reason. I mean, you could get a surprise, a situation where people um, are not cooperative as witnesses. A witness you thought was going to testify a certain way blows your testimony and blows your case. All of those variables can happen. Plus, see, the whole thing with even the indictment of former President Trump, there are a multitude of defense actions that can be taken, that a defendant can take to throw off the prosecutor's case. They have the opportunity to file a motion to dismiss early on. They have an opportunity to file a motion for judgment notwithstanding the verdict later on in the case. They have an opportunity, even post-judgment, to file a motion for reconsideration or a motion to reduce the verdict to something else. So all of those opportunities are there and play out if something goes to trial. Now, the other variable that is important is the fact that when you when you get involved in protracted litigation, multiple day trials, you are talking, as of today, I mean, the current value to take a multiple day case to trial is anywhere from $30,000 to $40,000 to $50,000 in attorney's fees. And some of them want their retainer up front. And they'll tell you that that's the initial retainer. And then if you're halfway through the trial, they might need another retainer. So the whole concept of protracted litigation could result in somebody being financially broke by the end of the day, financially destitute. And sometimes prosecutors or opposing counsel, they're counting on that.
So
they're counting on that.
You had mentioned this once before in other shows. Most people end up becoming guilty because they're financially broke.
Mm-hmm. I would say, yeah, and remember the Khalif Browder case up in New York. He was not even, he tried to say he never did the crime that they accused him of, yet they were delayed, yet his case was delayed in going to trial, and it had a mental toll on him, and he ended up committing suicide. So, his position was he didn't have he didn't have enough money to make bail. And as a result of that, the system went against him. And see that, these types of injustices are just deplorable. They really are. They just really are. And then you have other people that boast about the system is great and it works. It doesn't. No, it doesn't. It depends on who you are.
Go ahead, Holly.
But it seems to me that there's a breakdown in the system in that there isn't adequate punishment if the wrong person is prosecuted and goes to jail. It seems to me that automatically there should be compensation for someone, just as we're talking about for life.
Exactly. I agree with that 100%. And you see, now in Maryland, there was during Hogan's administration and his term, there were about 6 people that were exonerated through either one of those programs, the Innocent Project, or one of those programs. And actually, some of them were represented by Comptroller Brooke Learmon's law firm where she was working before she became comptroller. And see, there was a news article or a column by Dan Rodricks in the Baltimore Sun. He brought up the fact that, hey, these people and the state can't come up with compensation. So the governor was trying to punt. And he serves on the Board of Public Works along with the treasurer and the former comptroller, Peter Francho. So why couldn't they get together and come up with compensation instead of hemming and hawing about it? And I ended up responding to Dan Roderick's article and wrote an editorial. And I said, don't vote for people like that. You need a solution. He didn't go him and hawing when he wanted some heated sidewalk at the government house. And you can't come up with compensation for people that were wrongly convicted. That's crazy. That doesn't make any sense at all to me. Don't vote for that at all. Don't ever vote for that. That's terrible.
So now my other question is, if I take a plea, I know I'm innocent, I believe I am innocent, but I take a plea for a lesser charge. Mm-hmm. Will it ever be overturned because I took a plea if they found out more information saying, you know what, Mr. Paul didn't do it?
Well, you know what? This is the other situation. In fact, I had this problem early on when I started practicing law about maybe 3 decades ago. There is something called a probation before judgment, a PBJ, in the state of Maryland. Okay, and courts have determined that a PBJ cannot be appealed, but it's not a conviction. But to the extent that you're making the plea, you're pleading to this. And so it goes into the record as a probation before judgment. Now, and I remember Judge Gordy explained this to me. He said, PBJs, you can't appeal. And the only alternative is if you didn't plead and the plea bargain was probation before judgment. The only alternative is to get, Judge Gordy was telling me it's a poor man's appeal, but the poor man's appeal is to get a 3-judge panel at the circuit court level to decide your case. Now, the problem with that is that if you lose, that's it. You don't get an appeal right to keep going higher and higher. And even when you do go higher and higher, those panels of judges, to me, they're not that great in deciding cases. They get it wrong too, and some of them are just passing cases along, earning their $200,000 salary and not paying attention to the facts. Or they just as my cousin, who is a former administrative law judge, once said, sometimes, litigants genuinely feel that the law is whatever they say it is. It has nothing to do with you. It's whatever they say it is because they run the system. And I tend to believe that oftentimes in the past that has been the case. Law is whatever they say it is.
Go ahead, Holly.
Dr. Johnson, were you paying the lawyer who you didn't feel was answering to you?
The last attorney, no. That's why they did a court-appointed attorney. The third to the last attorney, I fired him. But so before the feds came, before all the alphabets came, they seized all my assets without me knowing. So they took all my money. So when people say only poor Black and brown people go to jail, prison camps, and cages, that's not true. When you have money, they take your money. And
they make you poor.
Yeah.
If you don't have access to the funds to buy an attorney, that's the point.
So my whole from fighting to prevent from going to jail, fighting, to not go to trial, fighting post-conviction, I spent over $300,000 in legal fees. And then just to let you guys know, the first plea or the first understanding of the time that I was facing was 300 and something months, they said. And I said, well, I'm not taking a plea, so let's go to trial. And it was like, you really want to go to trial? I'm like, yeah. And so what I've heard was if you go to trial, you get more time, but that's not the case. So if we're talking about 21 counts or 24 counts of mortgage banking wire fraud, why did I only do 3 years and some months? That doesn't make sense. It was women that was at that prison camp that did 1 count of mortgage and banking wire fraud, and they was in there doing 7, 8, 10, 12, 15 years. So like I said, my whole situation don't make sense.
Well, some of the things that you're describing is very disheartening because when you're dealing with financial fraud types of cases, see, that's why people have to be observant and focus on who's in power and how these people get in power. You understand what I'm saying? Because to me, it's all about, the prosecutor, powerful position now. Follow me here. Now, on January 6th, as I've said before in the past, Dr. Dyer, you've heard me say this before. It's about what they charge those people with.
That's right. You
see what I'm saying? So all them January 6th insurrectionists, they could have all been charged with conspiracy, traitors, treason, all of that. And they come out with these little Mickey Mouse charges. Assault. Really?
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 Disturbing the peace.
Disturbing the peace. Really? It's sickening. And that's all about power of the prosecutor.
Oh, shush. And
you know what I'm saying?
And conspiracy can be dangerous to one's life.
Yes.
You can get a lot of time with conspiracy.
You can. And so, the fact that they were bold enough,
mm-hmm.
The fact people died on January 6th, and the fact that they were bold enough to bring in, weaponized arrest things to arrest people. They weren't playing. It was planned, very well planned. And they could have easily charged them with conspiracy. So, that whole situation, again, shows you how the system works for certain people. That, to me, that's very obvious.
And just to let you guys know, I don't know if I said it, I've been to the Supreme Court twice. And the second time I went to the Supreme Court, which was in, I think, 2021, I think. Maybe in 2020. It was 2021. The Supreme Court said, and this is when I found out what was worse than a plea deal. They said, because a jury of your peers found you guilty, we're going to go with what they said.
See?
But
it's disgusting.
Yeah, but how are they a jury of my peers? And that was something else I didn't know, because if I knew better, I would have been like, well, where's everybody? A jury of my peers would have been people that was dealing with the illegal foreclosures that was happening in the state of Maryland. They would have been dealing with, they would have had knowledge of
some working knowledge, right?
Credit restoration, financial literacy, all of those would have been my peers. But that's not what was on they were not my peers. And so that's a issue. And we don't understand. We're thinking, like people of color, we think a jury of our peers is there. Everybody else up there is people of color. No, it goes deeper than that. If you are a dope dealer and you out there selling crack, I think they still sell crack. I don't know, but you out there selling crack, you need to have Pookie and Ray Ray on the jury, because those are your peers.
Exactly.
So it's so much that we don't know and we don't understand. So instead of teaching our children the latest rap or what's the hottest tennis shoe, we need to be teaching our children about law.
Right.
You're saying that, but you had ever so many lawyers. I mean, you've got to teach people to stand up for themselves and know when they're getting treated well and when they're not. That's the more important thing.
Yeah, but, like she said, if you don't know, you don't even know what to say or ask. Because law is
That's true.
Law,
That's true.
That's true, too.
That's like you going to Zimbabwe and everyone's speaking a language and you're like, I have no idea what they're saying. Law is a language that isn't spoken by many or understood by most. except lawyers.
Okay, so has anybody seen the movie Israel starring Denzel Washington? No. I forgot the last name, but Israel's.
Did he have a bush and some and wore glasses?
Yeah.
I saw that. That was excellent.
It was good, but it also brought up the whole notion of the plea deals and the fact that people plead guilty to things that they did not commit the crime.
What I get from this is not take a plea deal, period. If you are innocent, don't take a plea deal.
But watch this, though. You have to be able to afford to defend yourself. Or if you don't take a plea deal and you go all the way to trial, you have to hope and pray that, you get acquitted. And you know what you're doing and the legal maneuverings and all the objections and making the objections. That's another thing. If you don't make objections on the record, then you may lose your right to appeal or contest that evidence or whatever admission is, and you haven't properly objected to preserve your rights. But even that system is just whack. Because like I said, when you go to appeal court, it's all about the judges and their power.
See, so let's back up some. So if you haven't studied law, and in my case, I didn't have a reason to, that's not my problem. I'm a law-abiding citizen. Why do I need to study law? So, but when you don't know and you relying on your attorney, and then your attorney is not objecting, and that was another thing. My post-conviction attorneys had an issue with trying to grasp at straws to help get me out of this after I was sentenced. Because it was so much stuff that wasn't on the record, and it wasn't a lot of objections, and it was a lot of papers being moved around and nobody was talking also, just to let you know that. And so it was a lot of trickery. It was a lot of deception, and I was fighting for my life. And because I am a practicing Buddhist, I just knew not to lie because I was scared to death, but I knew not to lie and say I did something. And they were saying, we're going to bust you in the head. You going to do, 30 something years. I'm like, I don't care. I can't lie and say that I did something. Number one, I don't even know what you're talking about. And number two, I can't lie and say I did something. I can't make up something. It was.
Well, here's the other disheartening thing in the legal system. And again, I had to learn this through practicing law for years. It is very disheartening when you tell the truth and somebody gets by with telling a lie. That just unnerves me to the greatest degree, because but it's no different really than bad people getting promoted over you. And, that's just as insulting. But the fact is that when the court or the judge accepts something that they reject what you're telling the truth over something that's false. And see, that also happened to Anthony Ray Hinton, who wrote a book about it. The fact that he wasn't compensated by the state of Alabama after he was wrongly convicted. There was a police officer that faked evidence and incarcerated him on death row. And it's really the Equal Justice Initiative. That's why I support Bryan Stevenson being the next candidate for the U.S. Supreme Court.
Absolutely.
See?
Absolutely.
So he's doing marvelous work.
Before we take off, Dr. Johnson, what's the name of your book? How can they buy it? And if they have questions, where can they reach you?
Okay, so the book is on Amazon. And so we have a hard copy colored and a hard copy black and white. And then we have a soft copy colored and a soft copy black and white. So you can certainly go to Amazon and purchase the book.
What's the name of the book? Because remember, people listen to this on podcasts, so they don't see pictures.
The Pretense of Justice.
Okay.
Thank you. I will be buying it. Thank you so much.
But
It's
consider,
really good.
could you buy it from somewhere other than Amazon? Is what I'd like to know.
I mean, you could. You can. I got some that I, sell when I go to
Okay.
and stuff like that.
Okay, we got to rethink buying things at Amazon. I got to tell you.
Well,
Okay.
well, it was very difficult trying. It was a long.
Oh, I'm not.
Yeah, it was.
That's another way of the world. I mean, that's what I'm saying. You got to fight the world a little bit sometimes.
It was a little deeper than that. So they had the better pricing in terms of the printing and stuff like that. And so I'm not I have to. And all proceeds go to my nonprofit that I founded called Helping Ourselves to Transform. And the email is info@helpingourselves.org. And you can certainly get in contact with Attorney Pierre for more information. And I would love to hear what people think. I would love for you to email me what you think about the book, because it's going to absolutely blow your mind. And
was it published this year?
It was published. It dropped July 2022.
Okay, wonderful.
Yeah.
And
thank you so much.
Like I said, it's just such an excellent book. I really love the way you start off with the history of your family, and the pictures are beautiful. It showed the life that you had and the life that was taken away from you. And it talks about the justice system and how we need to do something about it. Because, sometimes people say, okay, well, you might have fallen into it, but I'm not going to fall into it. So why do I care?
Right.
And I always like to point out the story of of the exonerated five, because these young people were wrongfully incarcerated. And, the people who were doing that knew what they were doing, and they knew that they should have been looking for another suspect, but they didn't. But what happened as a result, this man went on to abuse other women, rape other women. He even killed one of them. So we never know that, what's going to happen, because the wrong person is incarcerated and the person who should be incarcerated is not.
And I also want to share with everyone that I am also the chairwoman for advocacy and legislation for the U.S. Attorney for the District of Maryland. We created a reentry board called MSARC, and people find that very, very odd. And I really take pride, like I'm part of so many boards and committees, but I take pride in working with, the Department of Justice, the feds, and getting them to understand and advocating for loved ones in the community. And so it's so funny how it flipped. Here it is. I was their enemy for whatever reason, and now I work with them. And like I said, I forgive my oppressors.
Well, we know there's people have their time, and I'm going to thank everyone for listening to You Be the Judge. We'll be here next Wednesday from 6 to 7. Thank you for listening to the podcast. Please share, like, and love, and have any questions, please contact us. We may continue to have our conversation off air, but I thank everyone for listening.